Thank you for joining us on this pre-camp webinar before we hit the ground in Woodland, California. You'll hear from me and Corey this evening. And first, to take a quick look at the agenda for the evening. After a quick round of introductions, where you'll get to know us as well as some of the other people that you'll see on site at camp. We're going to talk about some of the logistics for preparing for camp, and then also how to prepare for camp from an engagement and a recruiting standpoint. And then we're really going to try to take the bulk of the evening to answer all of your questions live in a Q&A there towards the end of it. So first up, Corey, you wanna let us know who you are?
Absolutely, Max. I appreciate it. My name is Corey Spira. I help direct Head First Honor Roll camps with Max McKenna. I am in charge of the operations of our camps. I personally attended Honor Roll camp back in 2009 and 2010, and it was a huge piece of my recruiting process that ultimately led me to Lafayette College, where I had the pleasure of playing for 4 years and was lucky enough to be the team captain for the back half of my career there.
Awesome. Thank you, Corey. And my name is Max McKenna. I'm our Senior Manager of Product Marketing here at Head First. I myself graduated from Amherst College in 2011, where I played baseball. Went from there, had a career there as a pitcher, went from there first into teaching and coaching at the high school level, first at the Phillips Andover Academy up in Massachusetts as a teaching fellow and assistant baseball coach. And then, as you see there, the Master School, which is a private school just outside New York City, as a history instructor and head baseball coach there. Came back to Head First full-time in 2014, 5 years ago this week, to really help families like you guys through the recruiting process at our camps and also before and well after our camps as well. One more face that you'll see a lot and a voice that you hear a lot while you're at camp is Brendan Sullivan. Brendan is the founder and president of the Head First companies. Brendan graduated from Stanford in 1996 after a 3-year career there. Outstanding player growing up here in the District of Columbia, DC Gatorade Player of the Year, played in the Cape Cod League, did enough while he was at Stanford to be drafted in the 26th round by the San Diego Padres, where he played up to AAA, had a spring training with the Texas Rangers, and during those off seasons, he founded Head First as, starting from one pitching lesson and then building into what it is with our honor roll camps, offering the opportunities to play at great top-tier academic universities and continue baseball and softball careers for prospective student athletes. And then another person that you hear from that you'll be introduced to at camp is our camp advisory partner. We partner with a company called Diamond College Advisory Team, or DCAT, which is an advisory service that helps student athletes really maximize and leverage their opportunities at the next level to continue not only their baseball career or softball career at great programs, but also really maximize their in-classroom and the academic opportunities for their advisees, for their student athletes as well. In Woodland, we'll be joined by Justin Kronk, who's the founder and executive director of DCAT, former full-time team member here at Head First. Justin, like myself, went to Amherst College, where he was a two-sport athlete, played football and baseball, then went into coaching at the college level for a handful of years, first at Amherst College while he got his master's from UMass, then at BC and UNC Asheville, and then also has worked in pro ball over the years in a handful of different capacities as well. And Justin, you'll certainly hear from him on site speaking to the recruiting process, and is really able to leverage his experience as a player, as a coach, and really, 20 or so years in this recruiting space to help families and student athletes really get the most out of their recruiting process to maximize their academic outcomes as well as their on-field athletic aspirations as well. And now, Corey, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about the logistics in preparing for camp.
Cool. Thank you, Max. So we'll start here with the basics. We are hosting all 3 of our sessions at the awesome Woodland Sports Complex in Woodland, California. Very lucky to be there for our 3rd straight year. Sessions 1, 2, and 3, they're going to take place June 21st through the 26th. And the first day of each of those sessions, we will have our check-in beginning at 7 a.m., which we will approximately run for about half an hour before we get rolling with our camp programming, starting at 7:40. That'll be an all-camp meeting. Would love to quickly go to an overhead view here of the Woodland Sports Complex, just to orient everybody with where we'll be. So you can see there denoted on the screen with the red arrow and as well as the red star where our registration, where our check-in table is going to be. In that large, just about a semicircle around the Woodland center there, those are all parking spaces. So a lot of parking and a lot of close parking, which is going to be very convenient for all of our families out there. You'll park your car in one of those many spots, head up the pathway, which is between our imaginary field A. As you can see, we've got fields B, C, and D, a spot for field A, but no field, just 3 fields at Woodland Sports Complex. So between where field A would be and field C, on that pathway is where we'll have our check-in. You'll continue along that pathway. There'll be plenty of our redshirt staff members to help you along the way. Players will pick up their jersey and head between fields B and D. That's where we're going to have a bunch of chairs set out and host our morning meeting. Want to dive into that day one schedule once we get everybody checked in. In the morning, as I mentioned, we're going to get going right at 7:40 with our programming. That's going to be a meeting for players and parents. We're quickly going to get players out of that meeting. Players are going to go stretch and get ready for the on-field programming that's going to take place the rest of the day. Once we send players to go get stretched, there's going to be a parents-only meeting there. Parents, that's going to be an opportunity for you to speak directly, hear directly from Brendan, who Max introduced just a little bit earlier, have an opportunity to ask plenty of questions and really get a good sense of what to be prepared for, what's going to happen the next 2 days, which I certainly want to preview a little bit here. So once we get the players all good and stretched out, right at 9 a.m., we're going to start with our defensive showcase. So we're going to split the players up by primary position. So for the defensive showcase, even if a player plays multiple positions, if they're signed up as a primary catcher and a secondary outfielder, for the defensive showcase, players can only showcase at one position. Only one position. And it doesn't have to be the position they're signed up for. So again, they could be signed up as a catcher outfielder and they want to defensively showcase as a middle infielder. That's no worries. But they can only showcase at one position. We're going to be using all of the field space that we have at the Woodland Sports Complex. So while one group is showcasing on what we call our showcase field, which will have all of the college coaches sitting on it, other groups will be preparing for that showcase field, maybe getting mass fungos, getting some throws in preparation to jump on the showcase field. We'll also have some objective measurements going on. We'll have players running the 60-yard dash, doing their overhand velocity testing as well. So we're going to rotate players around during that defensive showcase, again, using all of that field space at the sports complex in Woodland. Pitcher onlys, there is a session for you. So certainly if you would like to participate in the defensive showcase, by all means, you are welcome to do so. But for true POs who have no interest in participating in the defensive showcase, I was one of you, and I understand. And we have some skill development opportunities for the pitchers. They're going to be going through our pitcher power profile, just an opportunity to do some athletic measurements, testing basically your strength and athleticism, nothing that is going to tax you for your outing later in the day. And an important note, nothing that's going to require you to throw a baseball. So that'll be the opportunity for pitcher onlys. Once we finish that defensive showcase, we'll go into the offensive showcase. During the offensive showcase, we'll keep those same groups that we had in the defensive showcase, and we will hit by our position that we showcased at. Also, while some groups are hitting, other groups will be shagging, other groups will be preparing to hit, and some will be taking a few more objective assessments, namely exit velocity. So once we finish up with those showcases, that will pretty much take us through our day one morning, which gets us into our day one afternoon. And that's when we start our simulated games. So based on how many folks sort of check in, and basically we will sort of verify who is at camp with who is enrolled for camp. We're going to then assign players to teams, and we do this to make sure that the teams are balanced in terms of positions, so that we won't have 7 catchers on one team. We do it so that we have few catchers on each team, such that playing time is equal. So we assign those players to teams, and each player will play 1 9-inning game on day 1, then they'll play 2 6-inning games on day 2. These games are designed to facilitate action and maximize opportunities for the players. Therefore, we have a few rules that we impose on these games that a lot of schools that attend our camps and just schools in general use in their own camps or during their scrimmages. So just to name a few, and we'll have a meeting about this at camp, but we start every count with a 1-and-1 count. This encourages strike throwing by pitchers. It encourages swinging the bat by hitters. We play every out like there's less than 2 outs. This way, we're always looking to turn that double play if there are runners on base. We only play 6 batters per inning. So we don't play, 3 up, 3 down. Every inning, there are going to be 6 batters. And we keep that batting order running continuously, such that if the 3rd hitter in the lineup is the hitter who ends the first game on day 1, the 4th hitter in the lineup will lead off the first game of day 2. So there's no true batting order with a true leadoff man or cleanup man or anything like that. That batting order just runs continuously throughout the games over the course of the 2 days of camp. And as I mentioned earlier, again, these teams and the defensive positions, they are balanced to ensure equal playing time across all teams. So would love to move on here to a day 2 schedule quickly. As I alluded to, we're going to continue with those simulated games. 2 6-inning games on day 2. We've got 1 9-inning game on day 1, 2 6-inning games on day 2. And the arrival time for those games depends on what your team assignment is. We have 2 slots of games. So after the showcases on the morning of day 1, there will be a set of games with a set of teams playing and a set of teams not playing. And then our second set of games with that team who was resting before playing in that second set. So if you were in the early games on day 1, you're going to be in the early games on day 2. And vice versa for those teams who are playing in the later game. But again, every team's going to play in 2 games. So we'll have 4 game slots on day 2. A couple other things that we have going on day 2. There is a panel Q&A for parents. And that's going to be hosted by Max from our staff, as well as Justin Kronk from DCAT, who Max introduced just a little bit earlier. Awesome program, really great opportunity for you to hear from a couple of experts in this space. They'll have some great info for you and then spend the majority of the time answering any questions that you might have. And that's going to take place before each team's first game slot, which means that panel is going to happen twice. So if your player is on a later game on day 2, you don't have to show up early in the day to make sure you hear that panel. That panel is going to happen before the first set of games on day 2 and the second set of games on day 2. There's also going to be an all-cam meeting that's led by our head first staff, but important to note, there are going to be no additional meetings after each team's second game. So after that 3rd game slot, when those early teams finish their second game, you are more than welcome to stay, talk to coaches, talk to our staff, talk to Justin and his DCAT staff, hang around and just watch some good baseball. But there is nothing that is keeping you at camp from a programming perspective. And with that timeline, we will finish that 4th game slot, that last game of the day, by no later than 5 p.m. On day 2. Want to just go over a few other quick notes here, but some very important ones. And this first note is one that we are going to enforce very strictly. As I mentioned before, we are really, really lucky to be at this Woodland Sports Complex. Just an awesome complex, very beautiful facility. It's an all-turf facility that includes the pitcher's mounds. There are no metal spikes allowed on the fields. Again, this is something that we are going to enforce. Zero tolerance for metal spikes on the field. The facility has asked us to do this, and we are going to oblige. If you only bring metal spikes, I'm sorry, but there's really nothing we can do. You'll be running your 60-yard dash or hitting your BP in socks, or hopefully one of us wears your shoe size. But no metal spikes are allowed on the fields. Of course, turf shoes, sneakers, rubbers, those are all fine to wear on the field. We recommend, especially for pitchers on those turf mounds, to wear turf shoes or sneakers. Obviously, rubber spikes are popular these days, but just from our experience, they do not work particularly well on those turf mounds. So definitely suggest a good pair of sturdy sneakers or turf shoes, especially for pitchers. Of course, position players are welcome to wear those as well. And then bats and helmets, we know that almost everyone travels with their own, but for some of you who are traveling from distances that are very, very far away, maybe this isn't a realistic thing for you. Not to worry. We'll have helmets, we'll have bats that are all regulation standard that can be used if you choose to use them.
Thank you, Corey. And now we're going to talk a little bit more about how to prepare for camp from your recruiting standpoint, from how to use these 2 days as a platform in your recruiting process to really kind of reach the results that you guys are looking for and really make the impact of these 2 days last well beyond the 2 days that you're on site with the Woodland Sports Complex. And you see here, we kind of separate this into 3 buckets in the way that we think about it and the way that I personally advise student athletes to go about this. The first you see there, and we're in this time frame now, is the before camp. During this time, what I recommend is student athletes take a look at the list of schools that are coming to camp and really start to assess which are the schools that you think could be the right fit for you. Which of these schools are in the right locations, the right regions, they offer the right area of academic study, they're the right size, they're the type of school, and they have the qualities that you are looking for in that college experience. Because we're going to have 60, 70 college coaches on site. Not every single one of those is going to be a potential fit for you. So it's important to kind of do your homework, do your research before you ever get to site, so you have an understanding of which of the schools you want to make sure that you connect with and talk to while you're there, and also balancing that with an open mind and discovering new schools, which we'll certainly talk about in a second as well. Then the other piece of this is, after you do this research, lay some communication groundwork with these schools. Reach out to them before camp to say, hey, Coach Frawley of Yale, I'm really interested in your program. I saw you had 4 guys drafted. I'm really excited. I love the town of New Haven. I'm really looking forward to being on campus and learning more. I'm going to be at Head First West Session 2. My name is Max McKenna, and I really look forward to meeting you face to face. Laying the groundwork with a brief email that is personalized, that has some amount of research that you've done about the school, so that it's not just a blanket email that you're sending out to everybody there, but it really shows your interest in that particular school, can really help get you on the radar, so that when these coaches show up on site, they say, oh, that's that Max McKenna. I remember getting that email. One important thing to keep in mind is these coaches have all just really kicked their recruiting season into high gear. So they are traveling across the country. They'll be at us one week. They'll be at a different tournament somewhere else. They're going to be traveling around a lot, and they get a lot of emails to their inbox. So they might not respond to your email. Don't take that necessarily as a bad sign. Don't say, oh, I didn't hear back from Tucker Frawley. That means that Yale isn't recruiting me at all. They're going to read it. They're going to have it on their radar, but they might not have the chance to respond to you or respond to you before camp. So use this as a way to elevate yourself onto their radar before you have the chance to meet with them face to face. Which brings us to our second point, which is at camp. And the key here, you see there are 3 words: engage, engage, engage. The key part of a Head First honor roll experience is really taking advantage of this opportunity to meet coaches at programs that you're interested in. Get to know them, look them in the eye, shake their hand, and introduce yourself. Take the opportunity to learn more about them and their coaching style, and also give them a sense of who you are as a student athlete. What type of game do you play? Are you a hustle player? Are you a gritty player? Are you a power hitter? Are you a speed demon? Are you, what is the brand of student athlete that you are, and how do you portray that to them? Because they're also looking for not just your on-the-field tools, but also your off-the-field skill set, your character. How dedicated are you as a student athlete? What is your work ethic? What is your energy level? Are you delivering energy to the team? Using this as a way to impact these coaches, not just with how fast you can run a 60, but also the impression that you can make in the dugout by meeting them face-to-face and introducing yourself, and also sharing the field with them over the course of these 2 days is really, really important. Now, one thing here in the second bullet, we provide a lot of support for student athletes to be able to do this. It is not necessarily in every high schooler's toolkit to just walk up to a coach at their dream school and say, without any fear or any shyness, hey coach, I'm Max McKenna, I can't wait to play in your program. That's a lot to ask of some high school student athletes. It was a lot to ask of me when I was going through this process. And so one of the things that sets the Head First experience apart is the camp programming really helps facilitate this and creates a lot of opportunities for organic engagement over the course of the 2 days. You don't need to chase Tucker Frawley across fields B, C, and D, because he's going to be on those fields. He might be in your dugout, or he might be out behind second base during your game, or he might be wandering between the fields, bouncing from field C to field D at the same time you are. So there's a lot of opportunities for these fortuitous collisions, as we call them, to enable and to help facilitate some of these very organic connections, starting around baseball. You're on the field with these coaches, you're in the dugout with them. There's a lot of opportunity to start a conversation, not about, hey, my name's Max McKenna and I can't wait to play at Yale, but hey, Coach Frawley, I know you do a lot of work with middle infielders. How do you coach X, Y, or Z skill? And really use the game as a jumping off point, use instruction as a platform to help yourself start these conversations. Starting these conversations on site is just the beginning. This last bullet point, the after camp follow-up with coaches that you connect with, is absolutely crucial to continuing to make strides in your recruiting. Follow up with an email. Find a coach that you connected with while you're on site and send them a handwritten note. Give their program a follow on Instagram and start commenting on some of their stuff. Use the different platforms that you have and the different methods of communication to proactively follow up with the schools that you connected with while you're on site. This can be schools that you already had in your radar and you were highly interested in. You show up at camp and you're very interested in Amherst, and you get to meet Coach Kiefer, and you say, great, I'm going to follow up and send that staff an email or send them a handwritten note saying it was great to meet you. But also, maybe all of a sudden you connected with Coach Klein from Grinnell, or you connected with a school that you had never necessarily heard of, that wasn't on your list, but you had a great connection with them and you engaged with them and they taught you something. Reach out to those schools as well. So it's important to be proactive before camp in the communication, at camp as you engage with these coaches, and having done your homework, selecting the list of coaches that you're going to connect with while you're there. And then absolutely crucial as well is the follow-up after camp, making sure that you are maintaining this dialogue and maintaining this level of communication with the schools that you are looking at. You see here a list of just some of the schools that are going to be attending camp. We look at this list and it is absolutely excellent. All these schools offer tremendous academic opportunities at the next level. You'll also notice they offer a wide variety of different experiences. Amherst and NYU have very little in common other than a great education, the color purple, and a Division III level of baseball. Otherwise, they have very, very distinct college experiences. And as you look at this list and as you do your research before camp, I encourage student athletes to keep an open mind and look for qualities in the schools that they are looking at that can translate to other schools as well. If you're looking for a school of under 2,000, don't just limit your search to the NESCAC. Take a look at some of the SCIAC schools. Take a look at some of the schools that might not yet be on your radar that are coming to camp, and start to lay the groundwork with some of these programs as well. Because this wide variety of different experiences and different collegiate levels of baseball and academics opens so many doors for student athletes that come through our programming. And that is why we want to highlight this list in particular with just some of the schools that will be joining us out there in Woodland. Next up, Corey, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about the kind of some of the NCAA changes and conversations that came about really at this time last year.
Perfect. Thanks, Max. Yeah, so it's been about a year plus since we've had these recruiting changes under our belts. But I think it's still worth mentioning here because though I'm sure many of the folks who are listening are now aware of these changes or these rules, maybe they haven't attended one of our camps before and therefore don't know exactly how it affects the camp experience. So essentially what this rule that was imparted last year by the NCAA says is that if you have not completed September 1st of your junior year, you cannot have a recruiting conversation with a Division I coach. So let's unpack that a little bit, and let's start with those who this summer are part of the class of 2020. So these are our rising high school seniors. These are the students who have indeed completed September 1st of their junior year. This means that you are eligible to have an in-person recruiting conversation with any Division I or Division III college coach on campus. Free reign to sort of talk about anything that relates to the recruitment of you to that school, why you think you should be, you are a great fit for that school, why the coach thinks that this is the school for you over other opportunities that you might have. Those recruiting specific conversations are completely fair game. And to make this very easy for our college coaches to know who they can speak with, of course, they're going to have your information and they'll be able to see if you're a member of the class of 2020 or younger. But what we're going to have is that during check-in, there will be some black head-first wristbands. If you're a member of the class of 20, you will receive one of those, and that will basically act as a quick key for the college coaches to see, okay, this is a student who is in the class of 2020. This means I can have a recruiting specific conversation with them. Of course, if you're not a wristband guy, not somebody who wears a wristband when you play, no worries at all. Slip that in your back pocket, in your bag, but keep it in a safe spot. We ask that you pop that on after the games when you're rocking around the facility to speak with the college coaches. So that's for the class of 2020. For the class of 2021 and younger, this means that we just can't talk to college coaches, right? Absolutely not. Couldn't be further from the truth. But you aren't allowed to have those recruiting specific conversations. So what are you allowed to speak about? Well, certainly you're allowed to introduce yourself, exchange pleasantries, sort of get to know that Division I college coach who you're starting a conversation with. A couple other things. During our games, we're going to have coaches who are on the field and in the dugouts. They're going to want to coach you because that's what they do. And you are able to receive and engage in that instruction. And they're going to point out something in your swing, or maybe, you had as a shortstop, a ground ball deep in the hole, and there was something that you did on that backhand that the coach saw, or that maybe you have a question about. Feel free to ask that question and engage in that sort of on-field instruction conversation. And then after the games and at any other time that you're roaming around the facility, maybe Coach Frawley was that coach who was on the field. And, you had that backhand play. Go find him after the game. Go talk to him later in the day if you didn't get a chance to do it during the game, and ask him what he saw in that play. Why wasn't I successful in making it? What do you see that I could improve upon to make that play next time? And just sort of holistically, in my game, where are areas that could use improvement? Where can I further develop? All of those topics of conversation are completely fair game and are encouraged for the classes of 2021 and younger to speak about with Division I college coaches on site. And just one more note here, I keep saying Division I college coaches for a reason. This rule does not apply to our Division III friends and others who are going to be on site. So if you're a member of the class of 2021, you are more than welcome to have a recruiting specific conversation with Ryan Luke from Franklin and Marshall, or any of the other Division III college coaches who are in attendance. Just a couple more things here from my end. We are partnering with a group called On Peak. They are our hotel partner. As a third-party vendor, they basically go and try and get the best rates for our families at hotels in the area. So I'm sure many of you already have hotels. Maybe you've already booked through On Peak. But if you're still searching for a place to stay, feel free to go to our website, check out the Enrolled Athletes tab at the top of the page, scroll down to Travel and Accommodations, Baseball from the drop-down menu, and then you'll go to our California West 1 through 3 sessions. There'll be a link for you to click on, and you'll see the On Peak hotel offerings. Also, another partner that we work with is Next Pro. So Next Pro is our at-camp video provider. Next Pro offers a pretty unique product. They are going to record the games and they're going to tag each individual hitter-pitcher matchup from both the hitter perspective and the pitcher perspective, and then put that in a database for the college coaches to access. So what does that mean? This means that every coach in attendance is going to have access to a searchable database of video from every player who is at camp. Those videos are going to be cut to each pitcher or hitter that was involved in that pitcher-hitter matchup. So if the college coach searches number 25, Max McKenna, if Max was both a pitcher and a hitter at camp, all of his at-bats from a hitting perspective are going to pop up, as well as all of his matchups from a pitching perspective with each batter that he faced. Those are all going to be cut and tagged to the player for the college coaches to view after camp. Also very important, that's going to be available to you. Obviously a pretty unique product and something that you might and probably will want to get your hands on. You're going to be able to order that from Next Pro. If you go to their website and their events tab, you'll be able to find us there. If you haven't received an email from them yet, you certainly will soon, and you'll receive some from them after the camp as well. A few things you'll be able to do here. You are able to get all of that footage that I mentioned before that's going to be available to the coaches. They're also going to be filming the defensive showcase. That's an add-on that you could get if you would like, if you'd like that defensive showcase footage as well. Also, they're going to have a camera angle that takes footage of the entire game. And you will get access to that footage such that if you are at shortstop and you make an awesome play in the hole, diving play and throw the guy out at first base, you will have access to that play. It won't be cut and tagged to you like the pitching and hitting footage will be, but if that happens during your second game, you'll be able to go into your profile, find the second game that you played, and sort of scroll through the game until you find that play. And that's important because Next Pro is also able to put a highlight video together for you. So you're able to take your favorite, pitching moments at camp, at bats, and defensive plays from that full game footage and tell Next Pro, hey, I would like a highlight video made up of all of this. And they will professionally put that together for you and send it your way.
Awesome. Thank you, Corey, for the detail on our partners. And you'll certainly hear more about them on some other pieces of our ad site programming as well. Now, I want to take really the next as long as we need to answer any questions that are remaining that are out there. So to send a question, you should see a little questions tab in your GoToWebinar toolbar. Just type your question there, and I know a bunch of you have found this already so far. Type your question there, press send. We're going to answer as many questions as we can right now. If it's something that is more personal or more of a one-off, more pertinent to just your student athlete or your family situation, hold on, and we can either get to you via chat right now, or we can certainly follow up in the next couple of days, either over the phone or over email as well. Again, if you guys have to dip out at any point, if you have to duck out because you have previous commitments, there are plenty of other times before camp to get your questions answered, even before you get to see some of our smiling faces and red shirts in Woodland. You can always, and you see there on the screen, you can always reach us by email by our phone number right there. We have some great preparing for camp content on our blog as well that can get you some of the information that you might need. Corey, first question, always going to be my first question that we get a lot from families. These are some days full of baseball. What does the fuel situation look like for our student athletes? What is the on-site food situation, water, kind of how are we keeping these boys fresh over the course of the 2 days?
And a very important question at that, Max. So first of all, just want to make sure everybody knows, because I know there are tournaments out there that restrict things like this or have gate fees and all that good stuff, keep you from bringing in coolers. Nothing like that here. You are more than welcome to bring in anything for families, for your player, for yourself. By all means, please bring as much as you'd like. From a player perspective, we are going to have water in every dugout of the facility. So there's always going to be water available to the players. Certainly if players want to bring any other type of drink, Gatorade perhaps, whatever it may be, we encourage them to pack a cooler and keep that with their bags and with them throughout the day for easy access. But we will have water in each dugout. Of course, there are going to be breaks during the day to make sure that players have an opportunity to eat. Those, of course, depend on sort of when your games are, what position you're playing. That will all be communicated to you very clearly once we're on site. But in terms of what those options are, there are certainly options in the area. You're going to get a program when you check in. We will, in that program, include some local info, some spots that are just a couple of miles away that you're welcome to go grab some food for you, your player, etc. But also important to note that there is a concession stand on site, a very impressive concession stand at that. Our friends at Las Brazas, a local institution here in Woodlands, will cook up something very, very tasty for you. I say that because I've experienced it before. A lot of good options that they'll have throughout the day. They'll be open pretty darn early, certainly before any of the programming, the on-field programming starts on day 1 and day 2. So plenty of opportunities to grab some food from them, grab some food from someplace that is close off-site. And again, certainly a bunch of water throughout the day for the players to access in the dugouts.
And just to piggyback on Corey's point, because I don't think it can be stated enough, is hydration, not only at camp and the days leading up to camp. I'm looking at the 10-day forecast for Woodland, California right now. And Corey, I'm so sorry. Tomorrow it looks like it's going to be 105. 105 is the high for tomorrow. Thankfully, it looks like right now it is slated to cool down a little bit over the next few days, and next week will be in the mid-90s. It is still going to be long days. It's going to be warm on that turf. Stay drinking water all the way up from now until we see you on site. I cannot stress this enough. Stay hydrated in the days leading up to camp to set yourself up for success, not only so that you stay safe, but so that student athletes really are able to perform at their very best when the proverbial lights come on and they're playing in front of these 60, 65 college coaches all at once. Hydrate in the days leading up to camp. As Corey mentioned, we will also have plenty of water freely available, all you can drink water on the field, in the dugouts for players over the course of the 2 days as well, just to make sure that they are staying hydrated. But that baseline for hydration starts well before camp too. Quick question that we can address. A question came in about bat usage. Is it wood bats? Is it metal bats? What do you guys recommend? All we ask is that bats be legal for high school use. So that means that they can be wood if that is what you're comfortable or your player is comfortable swinging, or more likely, most high schools around the country are using BB core. I personally recommend swinging BB core if it's accessible to you. That's what the vast majority of, I think every college that will be on site uses metal bats and uses BB core. And so for them, that is the most familiar sound and look for these coaches as they assess. That being said, if you play year round with a wood bat and that is what you're comfortable swinging, please feel free to have at it with that wood bat, but it should either be wood or BB core. It needs to meet those current high school and college specifications. Corey, quick question that I'm going to turn over to you. Day 1 morning, we have an understandable question that we want to make sure that our student athlete is well prepared for camp. can student athletes arrive before 7 a.m. check-in to warm up on the field to make sure that they're ready to go for their first fungo in the defensive showcase?
I love that question. This player is probably already stretching to get ready to rock and roll for camp. Listen, by all means, you are more than welcome to show up earlier than 7 a.m. What I want to really focus on with my answer of this question is that there is going to be ample time to get ready for the defensive showcase, no matter what position that you play during our normal camp programming hours. One of the things that I alluded to but didn't really speak too much to during my explanation of the defensive showcase is that we have a prep field. The prep field is where players rotate to before they rotate to the showcase field. On the prep field, all you're doing for a solid amount of time is getting repetitions before you go on to that showcase field. If you're a middle infielder, you're receiving balls in the middle infield, of course. If you're a catcher, you're getting throws down to third base, down to second base, which you'll then replicate during the defensive showcase. So by all means, every player knows what they need to do their best. However, I would, in this situation, Max, probably suggest against getting here that much earlier. Again, there's going to be plenty of time to stretch. There's going to be plenty of time to throw. There's going to be all this time to prep on the field for the defensive showcase. And all of that is going to happen, between 8 a.m., 9 a.m. if you are the first position group, which is our outfielders, to defensively showcase, maybe a little bit later. So I just don't know how much a 6:30 a.m. Stretching session is really going to help for something that's going to happen, potentially 3 hours later.
Couldn't agree more, Corey. And I think that the focus is really for every other group that isn't showcasing. Before you ever get onto that showcase field with all those eyes on you, me and my team on the showcase prep field, we make it our singular mission to hit at least 2,000 ground balls on that showcase prep field to make sure that these groups are ready, make sure that arms are ready, dedicated stretching session just to make sure that everybody is set to go. We believe that, the day is long enough as it is. And I also, similar to Corey, would encourage families against showing up before that 7 a.m. bell. They're going to be on site for a long time as it is, and they'll have plenty of opportunity to be warm, mind, body, and spirit before the first fungo of the defensive showcase. And so that's what I also recommend as well. Question on kind of primary and secondary position, particularly for pitchers, and that breakdown of playing time that I'll handle. And then Corey, if there's anything that you would like to add in, certainly feel free. If I registered as a primary middle infielder, secondary pitcher, when do I get the chance to pitch? And also kind of vice versa. What does the playing time look like for a two-way guy, a guy who plays pitcher but also plays the field as well? Pitchers, whether you're a primary or a secondary pitcher, have the opportunity to pitch on both days of camp during the live games. Most often what this looks like is 1 or 2 innings on day 1, and then 2 innings for most primary pitchers on day 2, provided their arms feel up to it, and 1 inning for secondary pitchers on day 2, again, provided they feel up to it. So if you are a pitcher in any capacity, whether you signed up as a middle infield pitcher or a pitcher catcher or an outfield pitcher, if you have pitcher as either your primary or secondary position, you will be assigned 1 or 2 innings on each day, and you'll be able to throw to those 6 or 12 batters over the course of your gameplay. So the coaches will get to see you perform live pitching. Similarly, if you're registered as a 2 different position, if you're a primary outfielder, secondary middle infield, during the gameplay, you'll have the chance to play both of these different positions. You'll play more time at your primary position, but you also will have the chance to play an inning or 2 at your secondary position in each one of your games as well. So you have the chance to show that versatility, and coaches have a chance to assess you and see you not only hit and not only play in the defensive showcase at whatever position you decide to showcase at, but also your primary and your defensive position, or primary and secondary defensive positions during that live gameplay as well. Next question that I'm going to turn over to you, Corey, is this can be a tension-filled thing. You know, these coaches there's 65 coaches there watching every move, right? They're not only watching how you throw and hit the ball, they're saying, you know, that kid tied his shoes with a double bunny loop instead of a loop, swoop, and pull. How do I stand out to coaches in this sort of environment where there are players and there are 65 coaches? What are these coaches looking for, and how do I get onto their radar and stand out to them as a player over these 2 days of camp?
Yeah, really good question, Max. And this answer will admittedly sound a tad cliche to start, but hopefully it clears up and my point rings home here. It's really to be yourself, to act the way that you would in any other game. And I'll sort of answer this with a quick anecdote. But when I was a player who was getting recruited, and going to a showcase, not actually a head first showcase at the time. But when I was participating in this showcase, I actually was a pitcher only, did not have the opportunity to pitch at all on the first day of the showcase. So I was sort of sitting there thinking, okay, how am I going to stand out, right? What am I going to do to potentially catch somebody's attention? And what I decided to do was act how I act in every other game that I played at home, whether it was on my high school team, whether it was on my travel team, whatever it may be. And what did I do when I didn't pitch? They certainly didn't put me in the field. That was not a good plan for my coaches. But I would go get every single foul ball that was hit, every single one of them. I would chase down, hustle out of the dugout, and make sure that I brought that ball back. At the end of that first day of camp, even though I was a pitcher only who threw 0 innings on that day, I was called out by a coach at that camp in front of every other player who was there saying, "You had one of the best days out here because you caught all of our eye because of the hustle that you showed in getting all of those foul balls." So that quick anecdote is just to, again, try to drive that point home of be yourself. Don't let yourself get too nervous. You're still playing in a baseball game. It's got different rules, a little bit of a different format, certainly different teammates than you play with at home. But those things that your coaches have told you, your parents have told you your entire life about being a great teammate, about cheering on your teammates, and just sort of being an all-around, great ball player on and off the field, whether it comes to picking up your trash or whatever it may be. Those are still really, really important things to do in a showcase environment. And I can tell you from personal experience that will catch some coaches' eyes.
Absolutely. And just to tag on and really double down on that, I think that these intangibles, the quote unquote intangibles, things like energy and enthusiasm and controlling your effort and your mindset and your attitude and the approach that you have in the field are all things that coaches pay a lot of attention to, especially when they're in such close quarters with you like they are at this camp. Yes, these coaches are looking for guys with tools, right? They're looking for players who can contribute to their program by hitting the ball hard, fielding the ball well, throwing the ball hard, being effective on the mound, running fast. Yes, they're looking for these tools, but they, more than anything, are also recruiting character, and they're looking for the right types of guys to fit their program. Also, I think that this is something that no matter what type of player you are, this is something that you can control. If you're a lefty who does not throw hard, but you're a control pitcher and you have a great changeup, that is not necessarily the right fit for every program that will be on site, but every program is looking for a player with the right mindset, the right attitude, who's going to hustle, who's going to bust their butt and really give their 100% effort. Coaches are looking for different tools. Some really value speed. Some are looking for power hitters. They're looking for different tools, but they are all looking for a consistent effort and energy. And so I think that is one way, as Corey points to, a really important way to get on the radar of not just some of the coaches there by running a good 60, but all of the coaches there by being the type of guy that they want to spend time around and who they want to build their program around, the right type of character for their team culture to fit. Corey, one more kind of quicker logistical question about the morning of day one. If I am a primary or secondary pitcher, but so I don't necessarily want to throw before my innings for that day, but I do want to do the pitcher power profile, but I also want to run the 60 and I want to hit and I want to really do everything except the defensive showcase. Do I have that opportunity as a primary or secondary pitcher to not get my arm hot, but still participate in other pieces of that offensive showcase and some of those objective measurements?
Yeah, absolutely, Max. And a good question here, and I will, of course, answer that, but I want to just make this point first as well. We do oftentimes have some folks who are a little bit worried or apprehensive that, hey, you know, I have a secondary position and I want to showcase as a middle infielder or showcase as an outfielder, but I really don't want to miss this profile. And I want to make sure that these coaches get that data. That programming is really designed for pitcher onlys or for players who will not be participating in the defensive showcase. That's to say, you will not be sort of missing an incredibly key point of camp if you do not do that pitcher power profile and decide to do the defensive showcase. Again, that pitcher power profile is really set up so that the pitchers who are not defensively showcasing have an opportunity to get some type of other measurement, other look than just their innings that they're going to be throwing. But yes, if you are a player who is participating in the pitcher power profile and that's what you want to do, and you don't want to get your arm hot and you don't want to take part in that defensive showcase, but you want to do everything else, yes, you will have that opportunity. Once you finish the PPP, as we refer to it, we will sort of group up together all of those pitchers who participated in that pitcher power profile, and we will offer up that option. And we will say, hey, anybody who wants to run the 60, come off to the side. You'll be the last group who runs those 60-yard dashes. And if you would like to hit as well, you will be looped in to, again, that last group. So you'll just sort of join the catchers as a group who is going to hit and run the 60-yard dash. So that opportunity is going to be available to you, not to worry.
Awesome. Thank you, Corey. And then one, I think, final question, as there's still a couple trickling in, but I think we're coming up against our 1 hour limit, and I want to respect everybody's time, is regarding kind of the academic information that we pass along to coaches before camp, or should I, show up with a transcript, show up with a binder that has my official test scores and my transcript and my, my club awards and all my extracurricular leadership examples, all these different things. So these are things that I generally discourage players from bringing to camp in hard copy, because coaches have a lot of things to keep track of while they're on site, and it can be easy for them to misplace them or not kind of maintain them. They are in the middle of a Western swing where they're coming from, a lot of these coaches are coming from the Northeast, but certainly from all over the country. They're coming to our camp, then they're going to Stanford, then they're going to this or that tournament. And so as they travel through, it can be hard for them to keep track of hard copy materials. So what we do is, during the registration process, all student athletes had the chance to list their GPA, their standardized test scores, whether it was PSAT, ACT, SAT, whatever the case is. All of that academic information is given to coaches before they ever step foot on camp at Woodland Sports Complex, and then again in hard copy and again digitally after they do arrive as well. So they all have access to the information that you guys filled out during registration. If there is additional information, if any time between now and the start of camp you get your final semester grades in for this year, for example, or you get an ACT score back that is better than the one that you have listed, let us know, and we can update that in your profile so the coaches have the most up-to-date information. So between now and camp, take advantage of that and let us know if there's any information in your profile that we can update. If you get information after camp or right on the cusp of camp and you want to make sure that it's up to date, I recommend following up with coaches digitally, putting something in their inbox, updating whatever a digital profile that you might have, whatever the case may be, so that coaches can go to one place digitally and get all the information that they need so that they're not trying to track down these different hard copies or resumes or different standardized test scores, everything like that. Put it in a single email and include, the extracurricular club that you're a president of and really proud of and really involved in, and include your updated GPA and include your transcript. That's something that coaches certainly look at as well. They first pay attention to your unweighted GPA as kind of a barometer, but then they also absolutely want to look at what your course load is, and their admissions team has to eventually take a look at the course load that you guys are taking so that they can start to assess what this unweighted GPA means. Follow up with this more detailed, robust, and up-to-date information digitally with coaches so that they have it all in one place, really easily accessible, and not somewhere that they have to, work to track down or keep in a folder or anything like that. That's what I generally recommend as well. With that, I think that I want to, again, respect everybody's time, and I think that brings us to the end of a lot of questions that have come in. Again, this was certainly not the only chance you guys have to get your questions answered. If anything comes up between now and camp, shoot us an email, give us a call, find an answer on our blog. If you go to our website, we also have this lovely live chat feature where you can talk to someone here in the office. If we're not there, leave us a message and we'll get back to you. Just let us know if there's anything that we can do to prepare you for camp between now and when we see you at 7 a.m. on day one. Once we see you on day one, there will be about 20 to 25 smiling red shirt faces to make sure that you have every answer that you guys need. So certainly not the only or last opportunity to get your questions answered. Also, we've recorded this webinar. We'll be sending this out to all enrolled families by the end of this week, just to make sure that you all have access to this ahead of camp. It will include the entire Q&A, the entire presentation, so that you guys can revisit this or look for a specific answer. And if anything comes up and you rewatch that, feel free to let us know as well. On behalf of everybody here at Head First and everybody that you'll get the pleasure of meeting at Woodland Sports Complex, thank you so much for taking the time this evening, and we look forward to meeting you face-to-face in Woodland.